Super. Eric Holst back here again to talk about the creation of evolution, the agenda. And I'm going to paraphrase a lot of things, and I'm going to probably mess a lot of quotes and citings up, but I'm just going to talk to you frankly like I would anybody if I'm talking to them. I want to back up and talk about evolution, how evolution came to be. You know, way back 1,000 years ago, there was a thing called rationalism that started, and it was a effort to undermine Christianity. And a part of rationalism, Voltaire, the great French genius, was a part of that. And he was commissioned with developing a philosophy that would undermine God. And he was assigned a team of 6 scholars, greatest minds in Europe. And Voltaire has a quote. He literally says, "Surely me and six philosophers can come up with a philosophy that undermines what 12 beggars can come up with." He was referring to the 12 disciples. So this is like 400 years ago. There was already an agenda to come up with a silver bullet that would undermine Christianity, okay? And I'm not making this up. This is true. So there's been a concerted effort by the powers of the world to come up with a theory, a philosophy, a silver bullet that would undermine Christianity and make people godless. And then we fast forward another 100, 200 years, and we come up with this guy named Charles Darwin. And people think Charles Darwin came up with the theory of evolution on his own. That is the furthest from the facts there are. Let me tell you something about Charles Darwin, and you can Google this and research it yourself. Charles Darwin's grandfather was Erasmus Darwin. Erasmus Darwin was a 32nd Mason with the Scottish Masonry, in with the Illuminati. And he wrote a book in 1798 called Zootopia, which outlined evolution. It said cells and higher levels of organisms evolved by chance. So if you read, and I've read several chapters of that book, you'll see that he is outlining evolution. So the credit shouldn't go to Charles Darwin. It should go to Erasmus Darwin, the 32nd Mason of the Scottish Masonry, the Illuminati. That's who it should go with. And the Royal Society, he was also involved with. But they knew they couldn't sell it under Erasmus Darwin because he was a Mason and a part of the Illuminati. So they waited until his grandson, who I'm sure was never influenced by Erasmus or the Masons, aren't you? To come up and take credit for his grandfather's theories and writings. Do you think he ever read his grandfather's book or talked to his grandfather or was influenced by the Masons? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? So he comes up with this, and you got to remember that at that time they thought a cell was no more complex than a ping pong ball. They had no idea that it was more complex than a city, that it had little automated robots inside it. Super complicated. If you studied cells and looked at what's happening on the interior of cells, it's mind-boggling. It doesn't look like it happened by chance. So anyways, long story short, Erasmus Darwin came up with this theory. They let his grandson sell it, and boom, there it came. That was their silver bullet, the theory of evolution by Darwin, which has since already been debunked by some of the top scientists as being highly improbable. And still today, universities, colleges, higher learning places push the agenda. Evolution. Why? Because they want us to be godless. And when you're godless, you have a total fear of death and you're controllable. And we all came from the same people. Blackbirds, redbirds, all of them weren't designed right But my whole point is to talk about evolution and how much of a debunked theory it is. It's against the theory, the law of biology. It's against the laws of thermodynamics. Things do not get more complicated as they go. They become less complicated. If you leave a room for a month, you come back, it's dusty, dirty. Unless you put intellectual effort and power into that intellectual effort, the place doesn't become more orderly, it becomes more disorganized. If you shove 10 pennies off the table, what are the odds let's say you put them all heads up. What are the odds when you shove that off, it's going to be all heads up? Not very much, because things go from organized and orderly to disorganized by nature. So what makes anyone think that cells, organisms, would become more organized, more systematic, more complex? They won't. That's against the theory. That's against the law of entropy, which was the great scientist Newton. So we've also found that none of the complex proteins that are built within the body come naturally. They have to be built internally. All I got to say to you is if you believe in evolution, you're quasi-learned. And your mind's been hijacked. Always question. And why would you want to believe anyways, right? We're all animals digging, grubbing around for 70 or 80 years just to face death in a world that's totally evil. Everything comes as a masks, a veneer of goodness, but really it's about taking more money. That's what global warming's about. They want carbon tax. They want to tax every Western citizen 1 or 2%. That's a lot of money. That's what that's about. They're not going to make companies pay for it or the rich. They're going to make the working class pay for it. A lot of people haven't seen it coming yet. It's like a chess game. But it's about money. It's about carbon taxing. So they'll collect billions of dollars a year, and most of it, the vast majority, will go to administrative costs. People making money, as always. Again, don't buy into evolution. Research Erasmus Darwin. Research him being in the Masonry. Research what Voltaire said about coming up with the philosophy, and he was a part of the Masonry and the societies, Illuminati. And what he said about surely they could come up with a philosophy that would undermine what 12 beggars could create. This has been a concerted effort for thousands of years, hundreds of years at least. Eric checking out.